Thank you for that, MK, and thank you everyone for joining. So about me, I'm Jinal Parikh, and I'm a technology analyst in the Automation Center of Excellence at Goldman Sachs, and I've been working here since almost 2 years now. I have worked on 2 to 3 automation use cases, end-to-end delivery of them since I've joined. I'm also passionate about encouraging women around me in technology, and I'm a 2017 Google Women Tech Maker Scholar from the Asia Pacific since I'm from India. Uh, so yeah, I like to share knowledge around and also help create a support community of amazing technologists.
Incredible. Thank you for that introduction. If you'd go ahead and like to share your screen, I'll hop off and give you the floor.
Yeah. Is it visible? Okay. Is it visible, MK? Okay. So we're going to talk about intelligent automation at scale and how it's changing the finance landscape, and not only the finance landscape, it is where what all areas it's kind of touching and what all power it possesses. So we all have heard automation, right? It's a pretty commonly used term. Like we automation is so that you are reducing the manual efforts. You're trying to make it automated. But why do we need it? The reasons that you might think of is okay to reduce manual efforts to make it faster, and that's yes, that's obviously correct. But automation, as it has become a core strategy to streamline processes with technical solutions, and it is disrupting the financial industry. So financial organizations or any organizations which still use paper-based processes, they can no longer afford the reducing margins because of paper-based processes or the errors that come, the costs of due diligence, which are rising day by day, and strict compliance requirements. So there's a very tiring need of automation. We want to face the competition, we want to make it faster, we want to reduce errors, so let me give you an example. So let's meet Bob. Bob works in 8-hour shifts in accounts payable department of some XYZ company. What he does every day is he receives emails from several counterparties. He receives emails and he has to respond to them every day. He opens the email, he downloads the attachments, he saves them, and then he opens an internal portal which is used in his company. He reads the PDF or the Excel that is sent, and then he feeds those into the portal line by line. That is his everyday job, and through this process, he's able to process around 15 invoices each day. And obviously, he's sad because, uh, first of all, he has to do kind of work which is similar to a robot. There's no brain, much of it, which he needs to apply. There also might be errors because he's a human after all. So how do we make Bob a happy employee? Whatever we talked about in this example, it's like a standard process, and this already is being automated at a lot of places. In the, I think, around 2000s, automation was equal to RPA, and what I mean by RPA is robotic process automation. It's almost equivalent. People used to call it almost equivalent to automation. Robotic process automation, it's like a technology. RPA is a whole big umbrella of technology where what you do is you have bots, which are not robots. They are like software bots which mimic a user's activities. So whatever I told what Bob does, he clicks here, he does this. There is a sequence of events which happens, a very, very organized sequence that happens. So you create a bot using certain tools that we have, and it does a similar clicks of events onto a computer, and so a human doesn't have to do it, and obviously he'll do it with much more accuracy, and your process is automated. You run your bots on a lot of PCs and all that, so it's kind of automated. But the problem, or what you say, the shortcoming of RPA is that it is rule based. There is no real AI or ML which is involved in it, and it's quite you have to give access to every system that it accesses. So let's come to intelligent automation. As to this brings in the need for intelligent automation. Intelligent automation, it rests on the foundation of RPA, but to which it also adds real AI features like uh, computer vision, NLP, OCR technologies. Natural language processing, optical character recognition, uh, and RPA already is there. API, what I mean is you have nowadays, obviously, we have APIs for everything that we want to access. The data is transferred in terms of APIs. And workflow or the business process management, what I mean is BPMN. So, to give you how this all mixes up is, in the 90s, remember, we used to have for all government services or for any websites, if there was some error and you wanted to contact, support queries, they used to be through emails, or you need to call that number and wait in huge lines. Pretty irritating, right? How has it changed now? You go to a website for support queries. Most ideally, you have chat. You either chat with a real person or you have chatbots. That's an improvement. That's a very good example of intelligent automation. Now, how good or how your bot is able to give you the right answers, that's how good your automation is. So, intelligent automation is just automation, but it's made intelligent. And because you're not just trying to mimic a user's activity, but what you're doing is giving it a brain. A human thinks while doing something, and he might not do the same thing every time. It depends on what input he gets. You get a different kind of document, you do different things. That's how we want to make it smarter, because otherwise your normal, a very simple automation would not be able to adapt to different scenarios, right? So yes, so that is pretty much intelligent automation. And what we will see is where all, okay, now do we apply IA and how do we go about it? So situations where you can apply intelligent automation is kind of everywhere, but to just give you simple ones. Everyone or every company receives orders, right? Customer orders or invoices or inquiries, as I told you. We're not talking about e-commerce where everything is pretty digitalized and you have like Amazon where you have all digital orders. No, we're talking about old school uh, or financial firms where obviously orders are still sometimes placed on paper, right? Invoices, orders, anything it can be. So now let's consider that scenario where you have orders coming in or invoices as documents. And first of all, this input needs to be digitalized. Otherwise, how will you even automate it? So the input, your process is very simple. You get orders, you put it, you enter it somewhere, you compare it against your internal records, and then you kind of respond to it. But the real challenge here is it's content heavy. What I mean is it requires a human to evaluate something. There is an invoice coming in from some other bank, and the company has to make sure before sending out, okay, yes, we are going to pay. So let's consider invoice. Some company has charged you an amount, $10,000. It's not a very small amount. So you have to make sure before sending a yes that yeah, we're going to pay you, we have to check if 10,000 is the actual amount that we want to pay. So we even if it is automated, we always need a human to kind of verify it, evaluate it. So that's what makes it more complicated in at least the financial processes, and that's where intelligent automation is required. That so what happens here is that a lot of these important technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, your models, they come into picture because your data can come in different formats. We don't think about it every day, but when you do, it's like a really big and an interesting problem. You get emails, you get voice notes. There are a lot of ways in which your customer in any of the firms might send you data. You have to make sense of it, and then you have to process it. If this is the process that you pick to automate, just think that you have unstructured data, as I've alluded to it. Now, another example that I can think of is in the front office. What I mean by front office is customer facing. You directly face the customer. And as I told, yes, when you face the customer inquiries, or customer gives you an order and you want to store somewhere, when you have a bank and a normal bank, I mean, and someone has come for taking a loan, that's the person who's actually like sitting on the window who has to respond to the customer is in the front office. And if he wants to digitize everything, that's a huge process to take. You get inputs in different formats and you want to automate it, you want to store that data, you want to do analytics over it. The key part is basically making sense out of the data and trying to make it in the as correct as possible. So customer onboarding is as a similar thing I told. Back office. So for back office is basically documents is still a reality in many of the businesses. I've told you they can be there can be a huge variety in that term. So you can tell that documents can be in large volumes, in different languages. They can be in different formats. One bank sends you a document in totally different format is like the the company name might be in the first, someone might send company name in the last, but you still want to extract company name out of it, right? So you need to understand the document like a human would. You can't say that in the first line there will always be this string and you will always find it. No, that's not the case. So that's where it comes in back office, right? One very interesting example that I would like to give is, let's say a company has to normalize documents. What I mean by normalization is that you get columns X, Y, Z. You have columns X, Y, Z, and you get a lot of data into those columns. It's a structured like an Excel sheet. Think of it like an Excel sheet. So you get these kind of documents from different companies. Some might send you price as PRICE. Some might send you price as total cost. Some companies might name price as something else, but in the end, it means price. And for internal records, you get all these kind of different documents, but you want to store it as price in your internal records. This is what I mean by normalization, which you have different types of data where the same term means a lot of things for different companies, and you still want the correct result. There are two approaches of solving this problem. First is a entirely technical problem where you exactly specify the rules. And trust me, I've done this, like I've actually implemented this, where you store mappings, that if this is the column like total cost, price, uh, or something else, it all maps to price. So if you get this kind of data, you find out what is the column name corresponding to, and you replace it. That's pretty straightforward. I mean, obviously, it has a lot of edge cases to handle and all. Another approach to the same problem is that you create a model. You write a model which reads in different data and which adapts itself. It trains itself so that it's able to any kind of document. Now, if some other counterparty in the future sends cost in terms of price, it's still able to map it to price. So there are very two different approaches. Obviously, the second one we get results late, but the curve, where if something changes, we're still able to get correct results. That's pretty good. So that's the intelligent automation which I'm talking about. Okay, so all that I have talked about what is automation and what all or where all you can apply it, but then how do we apply it? So let's take a systematic approach. You have some piece of process which you want to automate. How do you go about it systematically at a at a firm scale or at an organization level of scale? We all automate. I think the very common example that everyone has is you if at work as a software developer, if we get some work and it's very repetitive, we all write a script to automate that, right? We all kind of write scripts. Hi everyone. uh,
Hi, Jinal. How are you?
I'm very sorry.
No
I
worries.
just got disconnected because of the battery issue.
No worries at all.
I'll share my screen again.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I was telling, I'm very sorry again. So taking a systematic approach, every process that we talked about, like let's take the example of Bob, who was doing certain tasks, we can break that process down into certain steps, like sourcing. I'm going to go quick because uh, there's not much time left. So sourcing is where you source your documents or information or anything in which can come in different formats. Next is extraction, which is the most important part, right? Which is the actual crux of the entire process. Next is enrichment. So as I told about, you might extract information, but then you want it to match your internal records, or you want to match a standard dictionary of terms that you use, like as I told, costs maps to price, something like that. You might want to normalize it, or you want to match it to certain data, so you enrich it. Uh, Next is validation and ingestion. This is just a breakdown of steps for a certain flow. If you are automating a certain other process, you still might want to break it down into very simple kind of components or steps. Exception management is a very important or a very important step, because when you automate something, it's bound to break at one point. Like for one particular scenario, it might not match the exact human output, which is why you still need to match it whether it is as expected or not. And if that is the case, how do you resolve and route your exceptions? Analytics is the end goal of it, how much you've automated, how nicely it's performing. And there are several other reasons why you might want to analyze your process. Like if you have automated a bank account opening process, you want to see what all customers are getting, how many customers are getting onboarded, how quickly. A very important information that you need to note down. So I talked about steps. So all these key steps can be kind of reordered and plugged, to create different work patterns. And what I mean by work pattern, I will discuss in detail now. So what you do is you don't only take a process and automate it by creating steps. You also try to create a reusable model so that if some other process which is pretty similar comes up, you can just plug and play, right? You don't have to start everything again and again. So as that's what I'm talking about. You kind of create models. If you are doing it at an organization level or at a firm level, obviously you need to make it like a model and not only a quick one-time solution. So let's see a few patterns in detail. First of all is the RPA. As I talked about robotic process automation, it kind of has a particular set of problems that you can apply it to. So the diagram that you see here, I'm going to talk about that. So it's like a self-serve tool. What is RPA used for? It's used to remove the bot out of humans, because whatever some human is doing repetitively, that's the standard case to apply RPA to. So you remove that. It's used for very structured data, for labor intensive, high volume, rules driven activities. Like, first you're going to do this, then that, then this, then that's where you apply RPA. Now, let's say a system internally or externally, whatever you want to apply RPA to, it's a bot who's going to do that. It's a bot who's going to click this website, https dot this dot that, XY. So you need to give the bot that access. Any website or any API that RPA has to interact with, you need to give it access, which is why it's saying that that's one of the important cons. Some might not be comfortable to give bot an access, and yeah, there are rules, especially for financial processes, where they don't allow bots to access your sensitive data UIs. So what you have is the first bot, or the bot first sources documents, then it ingests into some kind of portal, and then it has to share. What it means by ingestion is it puts it into some kind of destination system. It also needs to store it for internal records. This is one of the standard use cases where you first have sourcing, then you have ingestion, you kind of ingest it where you want to, and then you permanently store it for future use cases. A very, very simple scenario, but highly applicable in the accounts payable, invoice processing, claims processing zone, as I told you. The next one is workflow and process orchestration. Now, this, if you're not into automation or if you're not into business process management, you might not have heard of. For workflow orchestration, you use BPM tools. What I mean by BPM tools is, if you're not aware, I'll show you. Let's take this. So this is how BPMN or BPM looks like, business process management. There are a certain set of standard tools for this. Camunda is one of them. So it's just like the flow diagrams that we used to make while we were learning CS, right? But this one just runs. Yeah, that's the difference. You used to make a flow diagram for understanding purposes. This one, if you press the run button, this one executes. That's amazing, right? So we see here that you have this approve lead or check by sales manager. So workflow kind of integrates your service tasks and human tasks. So there are some things which are automated. You need to make an API call, you need to run this and that but there are some which needs to be checked. Like, so the example that I've taken is a bank account opening, like that. Okay, so you might get input from customers, but someone still needs to validate, and there's obviously a human needed, a bank manager or someone who needs to approve your account. And so, which is why it waits for this human task to happen, and that's what I mean by workflow. So you need to mix both of them. So yeah, it integrates human and machine tasks, and development of workflow is pretty simple. You have a wizard driven project modeling. It's just like creating steps for your process, and you have life cycle management. So what I mean here, all the steps, if I were to just run through quickly, is you take input from, in terms of forms. If I take bank account opening, you take input in terms of forms, and then you store the information. So someone has given you a lot of personal information. Like when I want to open an account, I'll say my name and all other details, personal details. I also want to attach a lot of documents as proofs, my passport, my address proofs, etc., etc. All this needs to be stored. A bank stores all your proofs, right? So it's not only about retrieving and making sense of it, it's also about storing and making it queryable. Like, give me the passport for this person. You have to make that queryable. So you review, you enrich, and you edit the data. Obviously, you also extract data out of it. The form might come as a PDF. The form might also come as a standard form from which you can read directly. Now you need an approve action, where someone needs to approve your account, and then you might want to respond back to the client saying, okay, your account has been opened. And then you have a search. This is like it's not a final, this is like a standard which is across everywhere. You search form data, where give me the birth date for person X, and you should be able to give it, which is why for faster search we use Elasticsearch. We can use Elasticsearch. At each of these processes which I talked about, even RPA one, even the workflow one, there are a lot of interesting technology frameworks that you can apply. I was just talking about the process-driven ones, but in terms of the crux of the technology, you can go really, really innovative in terms of using Kafka for end-to-end talking. What I mean is, between one process to another process, you might want to talk, and you might use microservices for that. You can talk to each other through Kafka or NQs. It's That's another area of discussion, but it's pretty interesting. Third one is document digitization, which I kind of have discussed before. Is you And at each step, I also mean this blue boxes that you see can be made into an entire process or a service, which can be plugged and put into a different use case. So we have written a sourcing documents, which is a fetcher. If you have written a fetcher once, it can be applied and put anywhere else. If you have a different use case which requires a fetcher, just plug and put this fetcher there. You don't need to write it again. uh, that's the purpose of this entire work patterns which I'm discussing, that each component can be made reusable. Okay, so that's document digitization, which relies heavily on NLP, computer vision, OCR capabilities. If you don't want to write all these very strong or very innovative uh, NLP solutions yourself, obviously you have a lot of vendor tools in the market and you can use them. If you don't have one, like if you think I'm not an AI/ML based company, but I still want to do this, you have a lot of options and you can definitely try those. So in this one, you have a fetcher which gets your sources, your documents. Then you extract out of it, which is the most important steps, and it leads to complex data processing pipelines. Then you perform validation and normalization on top of it. And finally, you kind of ingest it, which is the end goal, whatever you have. If I have end goal as ingestion, I do that. If you have something else, or you have to reply it to someone, you do that. All these steps are kind of, you have a horizontal service of exception management, which I have told as workflow. A workflow might be doing all this. internally. It has each of the steps as one of the tasks, as I showed you. So you need to have a really strong exception management in place. So I have discussed all the steps and all, but if you want to start automation in your organization, or you want to just start automation in your area, how do you go about it? You always start small. You don't directly jump to automating huge processes like I have told about invoice processing. If you have invoice processing going in a company, you just don't take, okay, I am automating everything. Like, because when you take a human process, it has a lot of complexities. It's not as simple as I talk, or it's not as straightforward as you can think and draw it into a perfect flow diagram. There are a lot of end cases which humans do, uh, humans take care of, and you don't know it. So if you do, you have to follow the 80-20 rule. You can automate 80, but 20 will still be human, and you cannot stop that. I mean, you can try to make it 10, but you cannot make it 100. So first step is always, I'll just, how much time do I have? Okay, there's some time still left. Thank you. So yeah, you identify the process. You first obviously need to have an idea in terms of which process you want to automate. Make sure your idea is aligned to the business strategy. If your business strategy is to make fast or huge revenues, choose such a process which is crucial yet small, yet highly important. I mean, just do that. Uh, a wonderful idea which I can give you how to identify the processes if you don't know what all needs to be automated. The people who are actually working, the people like Bob who are actually doing it on a day-to-day basis, they know. So you can conduct a kind of survey or have an open house discussion or a challenge across your firm or anywhere where people who are like Bob, you invite specifically people in operations who are doing that, and they tell you that, I'm doing this and this can be automated. This will give you several ideas to automate it. And I think you should do that on a yearly basis or a frequent basis so that you know what's going wrong or what needs to be automated. To be automated, redesign it. Don't look at capabilities first. Look at the process. You don't say, okay, I have this tool in place. Where can I apply this tool? No, that's a very wrong thing. You look at the process. You think how all you can redesign it, and then see, okay, for this purpose, for OCR capabilities, I can use this tool. For sourcing, I can use this component. That's how you do. After you have found out the solution, assess people plus capabilities, which determines your delivery speed. If your solution is more on AI ML, you need people who are that much skilled. It's more on BI, business information visualization. You hire more people who are that sort of skilled. Uh, so do that because it's very necessary. Finally, you kind of identify in-house or vendor tools because, as I told, you might not want to reinvent the wheel. There might be something available already in your firm or outside, and you can just partner with them. Uh, Automation brings in risks. That's a very correct thing to say. It definitely brings in risks. So you always want to know what risks it will bring and update your risk frameworks to incorporate contingency plans. Like if you're working at a huge firm level, especially if it's a very sensitive financial firm, that becomes a necessary step. Because everything you do is in terms of dollars. You make huge losses for every wrong automation that you do. So you might want to obviously take care of that. And final step is deploy it into production. After doing all this, that's like the final goal. And you don't do automation and forget about it. Please remember, everything that you have automated, you just don't forget. It might come back to you. So keep maintaining it. These are just some of the challenges which most commonly people face. I have found that by talking to other people who are in sorts of like KPMG or certain other companies who are also doing automation. It's like, especially in financial systems, you have aged legacy systems and it's hard to deal with them. Sometimes automation becomes more complicated than actually doing the task, because if it has a lot of edge case scenarios, and that's a very funny thing to say, but yes, if you're use case has a lot of edge case scenarios which can occur, then automation is not the right thing to do. Just leave it as it is. Using RPA, if you have a UI which has hundreds of buttons and RPA might not work for that, it might become very slow for that because it kind of takes your UI and it sorts into, it breaks it down in form of grids. That's how it works internally. So a crammed or a cluttered screen is not what you want to apply a bot on. For operations, that is the people like Bob, automation can be a huge transition for them. They might not accept it, or they might take time to accept it. When you start and you show the bigger picture, it can get hard for them because technology building a solution takes time. You have to bear with them, and they have to bear with you. Possible solution is follow agile practices. At every step. You show them whatever you have made, the little parts, and they can get the bigger picture sooner. Cost versus benefit analysis. Initiate automation only if possible. As I told, this like you have to see if current cost is 100, and if my after doing automation my cost is going to be 200, 300. No, that's not worth it. I would like to open it for questions and answers so that everyone gets a chance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jinal. We do have about 5 minutes before our closing session.
I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yep, sounds good. So if anybody has any Q&A, feel free to post it in the chat, and we're happy to help answer those questions.
Hi, so I'm open for questions and answers if you have any.
Emmanuel, yes, we are recording, so you can get a copy of the presentation on our YouTube channel. Does anybody else have any other questions for Jinal?
Okay, I'm getting a question. What kind of natural language processing tools have you used? I can't name the exact tool, but kind of Python-based frameworks, which so previously we have used multiple of them, and we have adapted our way through it. So previously we used to use some in-house tools, which was like the rules-based or a position-based document scanner, which did not use NLP. Now we have shifted to NLP-based, which uses internally Python and some libraries like I don't exactly remember, but what it does is it's an entire package of tools inside one simple framework where you can also extract information from Excel's, PDFs, and you can also do sentiment analysis on top of it. It's a very smart OCR tool which can also scan documents which are handwritten, which is like a revolution because PDFs extraction is very easy, but scanned document extraction is pretty hard. So I can't name the exact, but I'm sure I'll reach out to you and give you the alternatives of some frameworks that you can use. I can name one, which is Tesseract. Tools which are sort of like Tesseract, and Microsoft Vision is also a very good one. In terms of RPA, if I were to name a few technologies, it's Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism. All these are, I know you all might know they're pretty standard and good tools for doing RPA. You just have to specify rules. Yes, Emmanuel, you would be getting a recording of the session as well as a copy of this presentation. I'll make sure I send it out. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else?
Are there any other questions? Thank you. Thank you so much, Emmanuel.
Thank you so much for being here, Jinal.
Like I don't know, it's I think 10:15. I mean, the event started at 10:15 p.m. at your local time, but I am from India and it's like pretty morning. It's pretty early. It's 8:45 a.m. in the morning. So whoever are from India, a really good morning to all of you, and thank you for making the time to attend this in the day, like so early in the day. So thank you. Okay, sure. So if nobody has question, let's all proceed to the main stage. Thank you.
What?